Hey everyone, Travis here with another video on my 2025 Toyota Camry, and today we're talking about winter tires. So my SE came with the standard 18-inch wheels with the Hankook Kinergy GT in a 235 width by 45 aspect ratio. I find that's a pretty decent all-season tire. It's quiet, efficient, decent handling in the dry, as well as not too bad in the wet. But we got about 3 to 4 inches of snow here in central Michigan a week ago. So I was able to get these things out and test them in some dicey conditions. And as expected, that tread compound hardened up when the temperatures dropped, and it didn't do great in the snow. With this car being all-wheel drive, I was able to accelerate without many issues, but stopping and turning was a different story. It's manageable with the OEM tires, but not something that I would want to do every day. So knowing this, I scoured Facebook Marketplace the last few months and found a set of used winter wheels and tires to help me get around a little bit more safer this winter season. And today we're going to get those thrown on the car. So the only floor jack that I have right now is this Badlands 3-ton, which is not great for a low clearance vehicle like the Camry. So I went on Amazon and found some small ramps. These are like a 3-inch, maybe 2.5-inch rise. And I found 4 of them for about 50 bucks. So I went ahead and bought these and have been driving the car up onto these ramps to get the clearance needed to get my Badlands jack under the car. Before you put the car up in the air, you'll want to break free your lug nuts. The OEM ones on this Camry are a 21 millimeter. All right, so I'm gonna jack up the front of the car first and then set it back down with jack stands on the pinch welds. So for reference, the front center jack point under the car is on the subframe right here. And the rear center jack point is right in front of where your exhaust crosses over. And you can see the jack is currently right under it. So then I'm going to jack the rear up and just leave it sitting on the jack since I'm not getting underneath the car. Whether or not you feel comfortable with that is totally your discretion. So then you can loosen the lug nuts and take the wheel off. So I have the OEM wheel and tire on the right and my new winter setup on the left. You can see I stepped onto a 16-inch diameter on the winter setup to get more sidewall and therefore better traction in deep snow. The size of the tire here is a 205 width by a 60 aspect ratio. The Camry LE comes on a 205 65/16, I believe. So this is close to stock tire size, but it is slightly undersized. Comparing the sizes here, the diameter on my OEM tire is 26.3 inches, and the diameter on this new winter tire is 25.7 inches. So that's a 2.3% difference between the two. Based on my understanding, generally you want to stay within about 3% of the OEM tire size, because once you get out of that range, then your actual speedometer reading and miles traveled is different than what you are actually doing. When the speedometer reads 60 miles an hour, I'll actually be traveling about 58.6. And then at 80 miles an hour speedometer reading, I'll actually be traveling 78.2. The vehicle will actually accumulate miles on the odometer faster than it's actually traveling due to that diameter discrepancy. You can see the alloys are essentially new. They're Alutech, which I believe is just one of the cheap brands from, like a tire rack or a discount tire or something. And then the tires are 10/32 tread depth currently, and when they're new, they are 11/32. So both wheels are 50mm offset, but due to the width of the wheel and tire on the new setup, the shoulder of the tire is going to be inset in the fender by about 15mm more than the OEM tire. So the fender gap is going to grow with this. Now, as is the case with a lot of aftermarket wheels, the hub bore on this one is not perfectly suited for the Camry. So I got some hub-centric rings off of Amazon that bring it down from a 70.1mm hub to 60.1, which is what the Camry needs. So this will go in there and then help the wheel to be centered on these studs before being torqued. And the aftermarket wheel also takes the tapered lug nut design. So I had to get a new set of lug nuts off of Amazon. These are a spline drive and came with a adapter. And I'll put links to everything that I'm using down in the description. So then we'll lift the new winter tire into place and tighten the lug nuts. And we're just gonna go until they're snug. And then we'll repeat on the other 3 corners. All right, I got the wheels on all 4 corners, got them bolted up, took the car off the jack stands and set it back down on the ramps. So now we're going to go around and torque each of the lug nuts to 76 foot-pounds. All right, all the lug nuts are torqued to 76 foot-pounds. I'm going to back the car off the ramps, check the tire pressure, and then take her for a test drive and see if I feel any vibration or anything out of whack. Manufacturer recommended cold tire pressure is 35 PSI on this car. I'm going to use my DeWalt inflator to check and make sure each tire is somewhere near there. All right, I just took it for a couple mile spin. First impressions are 1, it's a more compliant, comfortable ride. 2, the Blizzaks are noisier than the stock tires. 3, the handling is worse. That comes with a taller sidewall, so no surprise there. And then it's dry outside, so I didn't get to test it in snow, but I've had Blizzaks before on my Fiesta ST, and I know how good they are in the snow, so there's no question about that. Another thing, they are tucked into the fender quite far, so a wheel spacer would probably do you some good here if you care about the cosmetics that much. So I want to get these tires on before a 1,300-mile road trip I have coming up in the next few days. So I'm going to run these commuting to work back and forth, maybe 20 miles a day for the next 3 days. So before I do depart, I will double check tire pressure. Now that these don't have TPMS sensors in them, the car is going to throw a code, and then I will also torque the lug nuts one last time before I leave. All right, here's a not so fun update. It's 2 days later. I've been driving on these tires, and 2 things that I have realized. First of all, Blizzaks are directional tires, so make sure you are putting them on with the directional arrow pointing in the right direction, which is right here. So rotation, that arrow, so it should be spinning that direction when traveling forward. My front 2 tires were flip-flopped. So I was getting a little bit more road noise than I was expecting. I flipped those back and then everything sounded a lot better. Secondly, when I was doing that, I noticed how very tight it is between my wheel weights and my calipers on the front. And my concern is that when ice and snow gets packed into those things, or due to thermal expansion, if the brakes heat up, there's going to be contact between the wheel weights and the calipers. So obviously calipers on the front of the car are larger because more of your braking force comes from the front. On this particular wheel, the wheel weights are on this raised lip on the outside of the barrel, and it is extremely tight to the caliper. I mean, we're talking fractions of a millimeter probably. So it's not going to take much for these things to collide with each other and do some self-clearancing. The back is not nearly as bad because your caliper is a lot smaller here. You have a smaller rotor, so you have a lot of clearance between that lip and the caliper. So when I realized this, I took it to a local independent tire shop and asked them to please take a look at it, see if they could potentially rebalance it and move those weights inward on the barrel. And they took one of the front wheels off and put it on their machine and pretty much immediately stopped there, explained to me that if they move those wheel weights around on that wheel, then it's never truly going to be in balance. So they pretty much suggested not to do the work. So they agreed with me that it was a little bit too close for comfort and that I probably shouldn't run these wheels as they sit here. One thing I did think of was potentially doing balancing beads in these versus the weights, but I haven't acted on that yet, so maybe I'll look into it in the near future. But in the meantime, these things are going to come off, and the OEM wheels and tires in that stack over there are going to go back on for my Thanksgiving week road trip. And when I get back from that, we'll figure out how to move forward from there. Anyway, just a quick update. This video is dragging on, so I'm going to cut it off here. Any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. But for now, we're going to put the summer tires, or all seasons, back on, and we'll see how they do in early season snowy conditions. All right, thanks for watching. Please like, feel free to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.